Well, we wanted to start off. We found a letter. I know you had shared this with me a while ago about somebody who put together, for those of you who may be familiar with C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letters, about the letter between Screwtape and his nephew, Wormwood, about really how to affect the lives of souls, right? Really to get people into despair. And he did one. There was a individual out there that wrote what he calls the modern day Screwtape letter. So we wanted to kind of start this and use this because there's two key points we want to be able to hone in on. And so I'm going to read it to you, and we'll get this on the screen. My dear Wormwood, I was pleased to watch your subject pick a fight with his wife last night, especially over something so stupid. Hopefully, they will get into it again tonight. If they do, here's some advice. First, once you get lovers started in a conflict, make sure they stay focused on the content of what they are fighting about rather than the way in which they are engaging in the conflict. You want them to be more interested in being right than in being in right relationship with one another. Second, remember that all conflict begins with something, usually something rather small. But the lovers begin to really despise one another when they start reacting to the pain we planted in them decades ago. The goal is to fan the flames of their suspicion of each other and their distrust of each other until they each feel like the other is their enemy.
So can we expand on it a little bit?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so you think about the way the evil one comes in through trauma. We've talked about that before.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the enemy can play on our emotions and in our memory. So when there's a certain situation that arises between couples, we may feel a certain way that actually makes us feel like something happened, the same situation, same feelings we had years later is what he's referring to, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so we get triggered. Even though there's a different situation presented, we're triggered because of the last incident. Mm-hmm. And in those incidents where we get hurt feelings or negative emotions, we make sense of it. Simultaneously, as we're feeling these things, we're making sense of it. Mm-hmm. And some of it, whatever the case may be, it's not safe, whatever sort of false beliefs we have, this person is... I don't know, we see him as the enemy, basically. And so now, if you're in a relationship or a conflict with your spouse, and the spouse is reacting a certain way, and you get triggered, you're actually you're reacting to something that happened, like you said, decades ago.
Yeah.
Not the current situation. It feels the same.
Yeah.
Even though it's not. And so I think on the outside looking in, you might be like, well, okay, what does this look like? There's a mismatch between your spouse's reaction and the actual situation itself.
We talked about this actually in earlier episodes when we were talking about that dump truck moment. And we're all guilty. I know I'm super guilty of that, right? That my reaction is disproportionate to what actually occurred. And this isn't even necessarily just with spouses. It could be, as a parent,
yes.
When you you lose your mind because, your kid got Play-Doh on the floor, and you shouldn't have got Play-Doh to begin with. So that's your bad, honestly. What you doing with that? But we talked about that dump truck and how often we as couples and as spouses can fall prey to that, not even realizing that you bumped into the wound, and now here comes the lion.
So these negative emotions that you felt during the time and these thoughts are coming. And that's why it's so important to heal these wounds, right? Particularly when you're going into marriage.
Yeah, so, when Screwtape is saying, get them to focus on that, right? It's not even about the issue anymore.
Exactly.
How many times have you felt like, it's so stupid that we were arguing about this. Like, and now we're in separate rooms, or we haven't talked in 3 days, which isn't a good thing. Whatever it may be, we haven't resolved, we haven't reconciled, and it was over something like washing the dishes, or, being snarky at each other when you were, upset, or whatever it is, whatever the nonsense we usually do with each other. But how many times have we said to ourselves, like, I wish I had it back? And this is what Screwtape is talking about. It's like, get them to see each other as the enemy. So to your point, love, where you think about, we've experienced where people have hurt us, and now you're that person. You're the person who's hurt me.
Exactly.
Because you did something that felt the same, or at least bumped into that same wound, and now I'm going to have a similar type of reaction. And a similar type of distrust and, anger or whatever towards you, that's, again, disproportionate to the situation at hand, or takes away from the covenantal bond that we have as a one flesh union.
Right.
Now, that first point where he talks about, to get us to focus on the content of what we're fighting about. Not even, and about being right. I'm going to win this fight. I'm going to win this argument. Rather than being in right relationship with one another. And not about it's more about what, as Screwtape is instructing Wormwood, have them focus on what they're fighting about, not the way in which we're reacting to one another. Right? So, I may be, you may be upset about something, or you maybe have a difficult day and you bring something up. Or maybe you're, whatever it is, maybe you react to something, and rather than see it as a opportunity to be there for you as your husband, I'm like, why are you coming at me hot? Like, what's with the attitude? And then I take it personal. So now I'm going to be right, like, you were wrong for, and even if you were wrong for, having attitude, or being short with me, or coming off cold, or direct, whatever the stuff that's in our head. More concerned about that than saying, man, what's wrong with my baby? Like, do you have a hard day, babe? What is it that ails you that I can help relieve that pain?
Yeah, it's an opportunity to come alongside one another and support each other. And I think the enemy comes in and tries to divide. And so it gets us to focus on certain words or the way it was said, as opposed to trying to come together and help one another out during these difficult moments. It's really a great opportunity, and I know easier said than done because we're human and we have strong emotions. But it's a great opportunity to work through and become stronger in the relationship, to help one another and sit down and listen to one another, and really try to figure out what is the other person, what's behind what the person is saying, what are their needs, what is it that they're conveying and not conveying, really working through an opportunity to work through it. How can I understand my spouse more through this incident? But I have to be available, and I can't react to maybe perhaps your reaction or a particular word that was used. Maybe I'm missing the point if I hone in so much on things that are so insignificant.
And I think as couples, have the willingness to fight for one another, not just with each other, right? So putting a lot of attention on being right, again, to, but actually fighting for, like, no, this is trivial, this is silly. Even if the other spouse is wrong, right? There's something there, so let's try to figure out what that is. What triggered that reaction? How can we grow from that? Instead of letting something perhaps so trivial really damage and cause further harm or further discord or hurt on your spouse.